The key is to be able to use it every night and not like buy something expensive that you feel like, oh, I don't want to break this because and only take it out for special wines. That's not the point. The point is to try to use great glassware every night when you're drinking just your everyday kind of wine. And that's what we build our company based on.
Welcome to Modo di Bere, the podcast about local drinks and local sayings. I'm your host, Rose Thomas Bannister. My guest for the show today is David Kong, the entrepreneur behind Glassfin, a new company that makes hand-blown wine glasses designed in New York City that are now being used in top restaurants around the world. David, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm a fan of these beautiful glasses, which we're going to talk about the Glassfin glasses a lot. But first, I want to know, what's your story? How did you get into wine? And then how did you end up starting a wine glass company?
Yeah, so I grew up in Canada, and from a very young age, I realized I enjoyed food a lot. My parents didn't really like food that much. They weren't very good at cooking, and so I kind of started cooking for myself, and I met some people that also liked food, and this is all like high school kind of time. And then in university, I guess I started. I was now allowed to drink because I was above the age cutoff, and I started trying some of these things, and I mean, it took a little bit of time, but after a while, I was like, yeah, if you like food, you're probably gonna also like wine because those two things just kind of pair with each other.
What is
And
the
so
drinking age in Canada?
it's 19 where I'm from. It's 18 in French Canada. And so a lot of people actually, when they're 18, they go over to Montreal to drink.
Fun. And where did you grow up?
I grew up in Toronto, which is not the best wine region, unfortunately, but it's getting better and better. So every time I go back to Toronto, the wine culture is just so much better. And by contrast, like Montreal is like one of the best wine areas. So a lot of people from Ontario just like do weekend trips to Montreal just to drink like
So you're
super
speaking
super
about
good wine.
wine drinking
Yes,
culture.
yes, sorry,
And there's
not
also some wine
production culture.
production in Canada as well,
There
right?
are, there are.
Yeah.
There's great ones in Ontario, and there's also great ones in Montreal, funny enough. Near Montreal, I guess Quebec. I don't actually know where in Quebec they are, but yeah, they're really into like that natty kind of style in Quebec, and so they have some very nice natty wine makers there.
I have been to Montreal one time and I found it just really, really wonderful. I'd love to travel in Canada more.
It's so close to New York too, so you could just literally do a weekend trip, and it's so fun. And then if you like skiing, then you can go up and do some runs and then come back. It's a great place.
So you were into food, you got more and more into wine. And then at what point were you like, okay, I'm going to make wine glasses?
This was around 2018, end of 2018. The Fed raises interest rates and stock markets go down like 10% or something. And I was at a hedge fund at the time, and it was very obvious that this was not going to end up working very, very well. So my options were to go to a different hedge fund or do something on my own. And I've always wanted to own my own business. So I actually stopped working and started my own business. And I actually started a software business. So this was early 2019. A few months into starting that software business, I'm like, okay, well, this is going to take a while. This isn't going to make me any money anytime soon. I was living in New York at the time. So I was like, okay, let's see if there's any faster ways to get to like revenue effectively. And so, yeah, it was just like a random thought one morning. Maybe it was like in the shower or something when I'm like, hey, like I should do this glassware thing. And the idea was simple, right? Because the idea was that, okay, there's these nice glasses. They're hand blown. And I've seen them at all these nice restaurants, and I love using them. I only exclusively use those, but they're too expensive. And every time I break one, I'd feel like crap because it was like $80 a glass.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So the idea was very obvious. It was just like how I was going to accomplish that. It took, maybe a year from like having that idea to having the product on the market.
So did it start with a question? Like, would it be possible to make a more accessibly priced hand-blown glass? Or
I
did you already believe that or know that you could
I
accomplish
knew I
that?
could. I knew
Yeah.
that I could from various things I already knew, but I didn't know how great it was going to be, I guess. Because when I started, first of all, I wasn't even thinking about restaurants. And now that's like 60% of my business
Wow,
is
so
restaurants,
interesting.
right? And I didn't think about like because now we have like a slightly less expensive glass. So I didn't think about that tier. So and when I started it was only one glass, and now we have like 20 different glasses. We have cocktail glasses and all that stuff. So yeah, I didn't know how kind of like prolific that it was going to become. It was meant, like I said, like it was really meant to be at the time to be like a way to make a little bit of money while I was working on the software business. Now this is bigger than the software business. So, I mean, we'll see what happens in the
Well,
future, but
congratulations.
thank you.
Yeah. Tell me more about having this idea in the shower. Like, I would like to have a more accessibly priced hand blown wine glass to use for myself at home, to what you just described now, where you have all these products and you're in restaurants around the world. What happened between those two
Right.
moments?
Like, so we're a bootstrapped company. We don't have any investors. I own 100% of the business. It's my own money at stake. So I don't do anything like ultra risky. I just move very slowly. Like if I'm emailing a lot of people and they're all saying, "Hey, like this is really nice, but it's too fragile to be used in my restaurant." Well, I'm thinking, okay, well, we should make a thicker version of our glass. So that's what we did. Little by little, we just add a little bit more to our product offering, and everything we add is really based on what our customers are asking for. So I know that I'm not taking a tremendous risk by doing something like totally out of thin air.
Okay, so why hand blown glass? Why was that so important to you as a wine drinker? And why did you focus your company on hand blown wine glasses?
If you're serious about wine and you really like wine and drinking good wine effectively, there's almost nothing else that you're going to use. You're going to use a hand blown wine glass. It is just so much nicer and better. So put it another way, it's like if you have nice glasses, you could probably buy slightly less expensive wine. It'll taste even better, right? So from like a monetary perspective, it's just like there's nothing that's more important other than the wine than the wine glass that you're using glasses. And so your options really are, okay, do I want this $80 glass, or do I want the Glassfin $40 glass?
Right, right.
Yeah.
So what is it about it being hand blown that makes the wine taste better, or
The
it makes
the
the
key
experience nicer?
right, the key is that it's thin and it's light. Right. And it's very hard to achieve those two qualities in a machine made glass. There are some people that can do it, but it's very, very rare. There's probably only a few factories in Europe that can do that.
Cool. I mean, it is very thin and light. Is this more about user experience, or is there something in the physics of it that actually
I'm
improves the
confident it's
wine?
not the physics. It could be like a placebo effect or something like that. But yeah, you can ask anyone, but like try it in this glass, try it in like a normal glass, and the rating on that wine is just gonna go up like 20% or something
I
like that.
see. I see.
Yeah.
Well, I think we need to put some wine into these hand blown wine
I
glasses.
think it's because it's so thin and light, so like it's not as heavy, and so you don't have to think as much about the act of like lifting. And when you're drinking wine, you're obviously like drinking little sips, so you're just like coming back and forth like 1,000
Right,
times
right.
at night. And yeah, just like and then like even swirling it and things, like just
Yeah.
the entire experience is
Oh,
entirely
that is an easy
um
swirl.
yeah.
So we're having a Chianti Classico Montera Pony from 2022.
Well, it's just great because we just did the Convivio event, which is this big Italian wine festival 2 days ago, and yeah, we drank a lot of Chianti.
Well, I have had wine from your glasses at restaurants and wine fairs, and did find it to just be a pleasurable experience for sure. How much were you able to, let's say for your entry level line, or maybe the your main glass and then going into your entry level line, how much were you able to cut down the price
Yeah,
of the hand blown glass, and how did you accomplish that?
so we're basically about half the price of our competitors on the high end, and then our lower end is like an extra like 30% less expensive, and they're both hand blown. It's just the less expensive one is like thicker. It's still nice. It's not as nice, but that's why it's 30% less expensive. Yeah.
Wow. So and how were you able to make it cheaper?
Well, we have a few major differences versus our competitors. One is we make it in a lower cost jurisdiction. So we make it in Asia, whereas our competitors mostly make it in Europe. And you can see our competitors kind of going that way as well, because they're going away from like Central Europe to more like Eastern Europe. And so they're trying to lower their costs there as well. We just went very, very east
Sure.
instead. That really helps. But the other main thing is we are a direct to consumer company. So basically, one person, it's me, and I'm the person that uh, does everything between the factory and the actual end consumer. And you'll see our competitors, they go through importers, distributors. Their companies have, 30 people working for them. We have me, one person working for them. So there's no overhead. Everything is super efficient. All the shipping is extremely efficient. So a lot of these direct to consumer companies, yes, they don't have a retailer, or distributor, or whatever, but then they spend 50% of their revenue on marketing. And so 50% of what you pay on this glass is just basically paying for the marketing that you're getting. Our best marketing channel is restaurants. So we sell this stuff to the restaurants, and then you go to the restaurant, you see the glass, and you come and buy it on our website. And so that's free marketing. So yeah, all those things let us have a much stronger offering at a better price.
So how did you initially get the word out to the restaurants about your glasses? Did you just kind of run
Yeah.
around and show it to people in
No, no, no.
person, or?
No, we didn't literally didn't do any marketing. It just caught on. The people who like wine glasses, who like wine and like wine glasses, they some percentage of them work for restaurants. And so we got it into a few restaurants to start, probably like two or three restaurants in the first year. But they were some good restaurants. They had some Michelin stars. Gabriel Cruther, 2 Michelin star. 63 Clinton, 1 Michelin star. People who own restaurants or work at restaurants also go to their friends' restaurants, and they see our glass and they're like, oh, like, can I buy that? Oh, that's a good price. That's half the price of what I'm currently paying. And so it just kind of snowballed, I would say, from there. Now we do some kind of like quote unquote marketing. Like, for example, the way you found out about me was effectively us marketing because we give out these glasses for like these festivals, and you were at.
Like I said, I definitely have tried your glasses before, but I was at the Ian D'Agata,
Yes.
who's my Italian wine grapes and vines hero. He had a beautiful small fair in New York, and there were your glasses, and,
Yes.
and I was like, tasting 14 different nascettas at the masterclass, and just being like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
this is a really pleasurable experience.
Yeah, so we sponsored that event, and then that event is very like we're really focused on professionals. So these events, I mean, if there's some consumers there, that's obviously fine. But really, what I'm trying to do is make sure that every single person who buys wine in New York City knows who I am. I mean, you might have known me before, but like these events basically help us achieve that.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so let's say you're more of a $20 to $40 bottle of wine person. Are you kind of on the cusp of, and you're taking some notes, you're finding about some stuff, you've got your independent wine store where you go and you ask a lot of questions, and you listen to this podcast. Let's talk to that consumer. You have a wine glass for them if they haven't tried a hand blown wine glass before. Like, how is that going to potentially elevate their experience?
Yeah, so I'm gonna steal something that one of my competitors said. I think it was Riedel, which is something like, if your glass is about the price of the bottle of wine that you're buying or you usually drink, that's like probably a pretty good place to start. So if you're between $20 to $40, okay, let's say $30, yeah, there's glasses on my website for about $30. The key is to be able to use it every night and not like buy something expensive that you feel like, oh, I don't want to break this because, and only take it out for special wines. That's not the point. The point is to try to use great glassware every night when you're drinking just your everyday kind of wine. And that's what we built our company based on.
And that's why it caught on so much, because it just did not exist. And people were like, oh my God, here's this beautiful glass. And,
Yeah.
and it was less expensive.
But for me, if you had $30-ish to spend, you would be buying a nicer machine made glass, but it's just materially worse, in my opinion, to what we have.
Talk to me about the process. I mean, hand blown, I think people have seen glass blowing, like each of these glasses is handmade, basically,
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
As opposed to what's the process for a machine made glass?
There's different levels of machine made. A lot of the machine made stuff is just a mold, and often it'll be molded differently and then actually just glued together. That's like a lot of the stuff that's out there, and they're really not very nice. Then there's, higher end ones that don't feel like a mold. I don't actually know how exactly they're made. And there's like really high end machine made glasses, which are they basically are trying to make it kind of like a hand blown glass. It's just like a machine is kind of like hand blowing it effectively. So those actually end up being quite nice. Obviously, like hand blown glasses, yeah, like you're basically blowing the bowl and then you're attaching this stem and then you stretch the stem and it's like a very complicated process. But they're very very good at pumping out lots and lots of glass. So you can actually get machine made glass, hand blown glasses for like a pretty good price, So it's not like you would think you would think that it would be more expensive if a human were actually like making this.
Right, but
Yeah.
actually you were able to find a way to
Yeah.
make
Well,
this.
even my competitors, like even at $80, like it's like okay, that's like not horrible for like a person making it. Like effectively, what it's telling you is that like one person can make like a glass a minute or something, Otherwise,
Uh-huh.
yeah,
Uh-huh. I really love, kind of traditional crafts and stuff. And
yes,
it's definitely a part of caring about wine. You get interested in barrel makers and the people who are making the vessels and everything. And it kind of fits into people who are nerdy about wine or could also start to get nerdy about the glass. In fact, I got to go to Venice a couple of
oh
times,
yes,
which made me, of course, really interested in
yeah.
glass and the history of glass. And then I have a friend actually back from Nebraska where I grew up and went to college. Okay, so talking about nerdy things. Okay, so okay, my friend
Oh
Mark
wow.
Mark Cornblue, who is I believe Cornblue Glass. I'll put the link in the to his Instagram in the show notes. But he made me this. He makes hand blown glass, and he made me this glass taste of it.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yes, this is this very nerdy, old fashioned like sommelier thing that was like, oh, I'm gonna taste the glass wine from this little glass. There aren't very many people. It really is something that isn't really in use anymore since actually you can smell and taste the wine better in this. You see it too with the Association of Italian Sommeliers. They wear like a metal tasted in it. And
Yeah.
I love those guys. I think if I get another certification, I might try to do it in Italy because they're just so amazing. The Italian Somms, and they have these great outfits. And actually, the first time I saw someone wearing the taste of it with the like it was like a metal one
Yeah.
and like this beautiful like long black vest floor length apron that goes all the way around they just looked like a priest or
Yes.
something and I thought it was just a person making kind of a goth fashion statement at
Right.
Italy and I was like wow and then I got more involved with Italian wine events and saw these somms with wearing these taste events synchronized pouring and I was just like wow it just
Yeah.
feels like this art form. This is fairly arcane but really fun item so thank you Mark. So I love this idea that you were able to make pleasure of wine more accessible by creating this beautiful glass at a much more accessible price point. But it's interesting. The questions that I get from people who are getting into wine often involve glassware and there's a lot of emotion around it. There's a lot of kind of fear like am I doing it wrong? It's interesting because I think it was really quite some time ago that maybe 20 or 30 years ago that I don't know that much about the history of that but I think it was Riedel. There were some wine glass companies and also the expert advice was that you had to have a different wine glass for every style. You had a
Right.
Burgundy glass and a Bordeaux glass and this glass and this glass. The wisdom was you cannot enjoy the wine unless you have the exact right bowl shape. I've spent some time in wine regions where people really got into that, specifically Friuli, Venezia, Giulia. I was able to, for the Moto di Bere TV show, to spend time with producers who probably really came into their own around that time and invented their own glass shape specifically for their own wines.
Right.
And I wondered sometimes if the closeness to Venice also had something to do with that, as well as sort of the moment in time. But, I've also talked to people who said, look, wine is great and everything, but actually there's an interview with Michaela Mussolino. She was like, at the point where she started to feel like it was too much, sort of disconnected from her understanding of this Italian farm product, was the moment, and I've heard other people bring this up too. People would come to a restaurant with their own wine glasses in a little suitcase. Like, I can't possibly drink out of whatever wine glasses you have
Yeah,
here.
those are my customers, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because we actually
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
a great packaging where people can put a glass into the
Okay.
suitcase. And yeah,
So
there's
you've got a wine suitcase.
Yeah. Well, it literally comes with the purchase. So you
With
don't
this,
have to
so
buy
you can carry it around and you can bring it.
exactly. And that's a great form of marketing for us.
I don't know how you feel about this, because I basically, when I was in Friuli, I was like drinking out of these beautiful glasses that were custom made for each wine, and just these aromas jumping out at me. I was like, oh, you know what? There is something to this. I didn't feel like it was all just a way to sell more wine glasses. But then on the other hand, I do feel like in just the general way that people get turned off from wine, from it being this, luxury product, or this ivory tower, something like that. Do you want to hear my pet peeve?
Yes.
Okay. There's a lot of ways I feel really passionately that we could make wine less pretentious and more accessible, bring new wine drinkers into the wine world. But I feel like there's this nod to some of the faults, pun intended, I guess, in wine culture. I feel like there's this weird masochistic reaction of wine bars in New York City, hot take, serving wine in these little tiny sherry glasses.
Right.
And I feel like we're just kind of punishing ourselves, or acting like the fancy wine glass became this symbol of taking ourselves too seriously. And so what really strikes me is when I go to a place with a great wine list and the food is taken really seriously and served really well, and then I'm served in this weird tiny little glass, and it just, I don't get it. And it drives me crazy. Why are we doing that?
I actually think that came from European wine bars, actually. It's these like little small
Oh.
glasses.
Okay.
And I'm not sure why they went that way, but it might be a space constraint thing where, obviously it's nice to have a longer glass, but this also takes up a lot of space. Also, I've seen smaller stem sizes in Japan, which also makes sense because they also don't have very much room there. If the stem is small and it's still like a nice glass, like we sell some glasses like that where you have we actually have a collaboration with Raj Par where it's kind of like a short stem glass. It's a little bit smaller. It's meant to be like a tasting glass.
They are cute. Yeah, this idea of the tasting glass.
Yeah.
But then the opening is so small.
Right. Which is not good.
It's not good.
Which we need to fix that.
They look like to me they look like a sherry glass.
Right.
But what I feel like I need to study more and learn why sherry glasses are tiny like that. But I mean, if the really small diameter, which, like, if you're listening to this and you're like, oh my God, how can I possibly get this right? I will tell people who are intimidated by wine glasses, just start. You need a stem.
Yes.
The wine glass needs to be white. See, not blue or something.
Right.
There should be an opening here. That's not too small. Like that's why people now say not to drink sparkling wine out of a flute, because a smaller opening
That's
prevents
horrible.
prevents aromas. So all you really need is a glass that's big enough to get your nose into, that has a stem where you can appreciate the color.
I didn't invent these dimensions, but this is basically like what a universal wine glass looks like.
Right.
And this, if you don't know what you're like, you can drink sherry out of this and it'll taste perfectly.
Right.
Fine.
And this is where the experts have come to it. I think there was some fatigue, and now most companies will have the advent of the universal wine glasses. Like, okay, oh, thank God.
Yeah, so there's a pushback for sure against that theory. It's also like I'm not against the idea of having like, a red wine glass and a white wine glass and a burgundy glass, maybe if it's really big, or like a, not a flute, but like a tulip thing for a champagne. I think that's like totally fine and like totally valid. But what I do have an issue is if you go on one of these people's websites and literally there's like 300 different items on their website and it's just glasses, that's like very confusing for people. I forget which Harvard HBS person, whatever, called it the paradox of choice.
Yeah.
That's what we want to stay away from. We think just like simpler is better. It's also better for like pricing and all that stuff as well. If we have fewer SKUs, just like so much less confusing for our consumers. So
yeah.
Yeah.
I noticed there was a big trend of stemless as well.
Oh,
And
okay.
for a while, it wasn't just wine bars with like little bitty sherry glasses, but it was all the new restaurants. This is maybe 10, 15 years ago.
Okay.
I really felt like people were making me drink my wine out of like a candle votive, just this tiny
Right.
little thing. And I felt like that was a way of saying, no, we don't take ourselves too seriously. You know, wine is fun. There was something about the stem that, I mean, the stem is really functional in terms of mostly not getting fingerprints all over your
Yes.
glass, but also, you know, to do the little swirly thing, or,
Yeah.
you know, like level one is always like on the table, which is fine forever. You don't, but I will say, so the swirling thing also really trips people up when they first get started in wine. And anyway, you can
Teach me how to swirl.
everybody does it a little different.
Yeah.
I remember when I took my first sommelier class, which was the course, which was the Sommelier Society of America, which is based here in New
Yeah.
York. Still my favorite certification. I'm now an instructor for them. They meet actually in a much chiller space. Now we meet in a much chiller space. But when I took the course, it was at the university club. It was at 9 a.m. If you were late, you had to walk, you know, to the front of this room with a chandelier. There was like a dress code in the building. And it was like, oh my God, sort of exciting, but very intimidating. And I just remember not knowing how to swirl. I'd never eaten arugula before I moved to New York. You know what I mean? Like I was not a fancy person. And this swirling thing really, you know, was kind of intimidating for me. So I really like encourage people to just swirl on the table. And the reason we do this is to open it up and mostly to stick the actual smell molecules to
Yeah.
get them out of the glass and into your
Right.
nose so you can smell them better. But this is how somebody taught me. And there's lots of different ways to do it. So if you want to do an in the air swirl, they told me to take these two fingers
Yep.
and pinch here, but then use the rest of my hand to support it. And
Yep.
then the way I was taught was a little bit of a wrist, like a
Yeah.
little bit of almost a figure eight, but not like a elbow, not like
Yes.
a witch's cauldron. So now I can do it. Now it's very second nature, but it was not. And I would often, you know, kind of spill and feel like, oh, is everybody doing this? You know, so I know, but what's your swirl like that without
I
me?
honestly, I don't
Yeah.
even think about it. But actually, like to try to do this with like a thicker glass, like you're not even gonna be able to. But this, you could actually just do with two fingers because
I
it's
have
so thin, you
It's
know.
tiny. Actually, like I
Yeah.
feel like I'm just giving it. All right, listen. I was already a fan of your glasses because they're pretty and they're
Yes.
pleasurable to use and it's just nice to have around. But I have to say now that we're talking about this is the easiest. It's
Yeah.
dee, 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 dee. This is really easy to
Yeah.
swirl.
Because the
I'm sold on that.
majority of the weight in this glass right now is actually the wine. So you're literally just worried about the wine. Like everything else is actually there's more weight in the liquid there than the
It's like
entire glass.
it's like invisible. It's like a
Yeah.
unicorn.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's how we want people to feel. And so when people don't know about our glasses, they first use it, they pick it up, they're like, whoa, like it's
'Cause
just
it's
like a
so light. It's
mind
just
bending kind of experience for them.
so you're literally with this beautiful, delicate, light hand blown glass. You're really actually letting people just focus on what's inside.
Exactly.
That is so easy to swirl. I hadn't thought about that as a selling point, but now I'm like, oh, 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 oh.
Also, like I heard sommeliers don't even swirl that much. That's what because I over swirl because I'm
Yeah.
just like a fidgety person. But like a sommelier was like, no, you're just supposed to like flick it like that.
That is honestly a really fair point. I do think we overdo it. It is almost kind of like a nervous energy thing for
Yeah,
everybody.
totally.
It does become this habit. I had someone say, don't just swirl, smell it first and see if it needs to be opened
Yeah,
up.
that's fair too.
Right? Like you might not need to oxygenate it. If it's already perfect, then you're just kind of beating it up and like knocking it out.
Yeah.
Because there's this oxygen cycle of like,
Right.
it's when we talk about it being tight
Yeah.
versus open, we're talking about oxygenation.
Right.
And if the wine's been open for a while, if it depends on what it is,
Yeah.
it might be perfect before you even move it. And if you just sit here and go, you know, then you might have just knocked it out of a nice moment.
Right.
You know.
I would just say this falls into the category of like don't let the little details, you know, worry you too much. Like it'll be fine. Just however you do it, it'll probably be fine, you know. The two most important things is the wine has to be good.
Yeah.
And the glass has to be good. And everything else is just minor.
Well, this is a good wine glass, and I'm really happy that you at Glassfin have made this wine experience of this hand blown glass to be more accessible to
Yeah.
people. So tell me about the different glasses that you have
Yeah.
and tell me how much they cost at this point right now as 2025
Sure.
as we're recording this.
Sure. So this is $80 for two, so $40 a glass. We have a less expensive one. I think it's currently 55 for two, and that's the one I was saying, or maybe it's 60 now. I had got to check, but that's the one I'm saying that's like a little bit thicker, and it's still really nice. Like where you feel you'll still get some of that hand blown experience, but it will feel different than this. It's heavier and thicker, and then we have in each of those lines we have bigger glasses, like we have the Bordeaux's and the Burgundies and like bigger glasses, and then on top of that we have cocktail glasses. So we have like little coupes and martinis and whiskey glasses, and so we have a full range of whatever glass shape you could possibly want. We probably have it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Could you explain to us the difference between a Bordeaux and a Burgundy glass?
Yeah, Burgundy is just usually a bigger glass. Effectively, you could just think about it like that.
So Bordeaux being this blend of usually Cabernet and Merlot, always a blend from
Yes.
the Bordeaux region, and then the Burgundy being Pinot Noir
Yes.
for a red and typically Chardonnay
Yes.
for a white.
So I call it those because that's just how people call it. But really, it's not like you can only drink a Bordeaux out of a Bordeaux glass. You could drink a Bordeaux out of this glass. You could drink a Bordeaux out of a Burgundy glass. It honestly doesn't really matter. They're just bigger. So the bigger the glass, the more like the aromatics kind of like get released. I think the sweet spot for a lot. Well, this is definitely the sweet spot because this is our
This is the sweet spot.
like top selling product. But I think a lot of people, if they like reds or whatever, I think the Bordeaux glass is just perfect. But we call it the expression, and that's like a really like you don't even need to go even bigger than that. It'll work for basically every red wine.
My feeling with wine always is that the purpose of more education, more information should be the increase of enjoyment,
Yes.
more pleasure, more joy, more appreciation of this beautiful, unique product. If I had a really chunky, short, thick glass with a small opening, I mean, things like serving temperature are also really important. It's really just about like take good care of your wine. Don't, put it on top of your fridge.
Don't put it on top of your stove.
Right. Yeah. Right. What I would love for people to get out of all this information is not here are the rules and you're doing it wrong.
Right.
But wine is so special that people have been working together
Mm-hmm.
for centuries to perfect
Right.
the wine and the service. And this, moment in time that you have here was available to us because you saw this
Yes.
hole in the market and you've been successful because you were right about that. You were like, people want this. I want this. Other people are going to want this too. I'm going to make it. But in a way, to find these proportions and everything, it's this process of technology, observation, scientific method over the course of centuries through tradesmen and also, people who enjoy the finer things in life to come together to get us this moment where we can have something like
Right.
this.
And I won't take credit for because this trend really started. I want to say something like 2010 ish. I would say it probably started in Europe and then it came to the U.S. where people are just going lighter and lighter with their wine glasses, and yeah, people realize that this is worth it. It's gonna break a little bit more for sure, but it elevates the experience so much that the return on the investment of having some glasses break is so much higher. Again, back to that example of this makes that wine taste 20% better. So, why would we not put that investment in? I kind of came a little bit later, but I guess my contribution was to help make this a trend among a much wider group of people and make it more affordable for a greater group of people.
Tell us about some of the restaurants that you're in now. You're having a lot of success with restaurants. I want to hear about that. But do you also want to find a way to reach consumers at home? Are you hoping that's kind of boomerang around? What are your plans for that? Is that still your dream that people will have it at home?
So we're about, I think, probably like 60% restaurants, 40% consumer, which is a great ratio. I'm happy with that ratio. I don't even control the ratio, right? It's just like who buys glasses from me effectively. But yeah, I'm very happy to serve both markets. Obviously, like the consumer side, like there's more education that we need to do, and we're there to help. Where, yeah, like if this is the first time using a glass like this, like you might accidentally break one on the first time you wash it because you're just
You're
you've
not
never done
used
that
to
before.
the
Yeah.
delicate touch.
So
Yeah.
almost every time someone tells me it breaks, it's because like their relatives or something was like helping them wash it, and they're just like they didn't even realize like you need to wash these in a more you got to do a little bit
Gonna be a little
softer.
more gentle.
Yes.
What is the care?
We recommend just using a dishwasher. Bottom rack, stem facing up, not touching anything, obviously. It's really not going to break. We're in hundreds of restaurants in the US, and they're all in much harder dishwashers than the one at home.
True.
So, and if you have any issues, you just email us and we'll help you deal with it.
Listen, $40 for a delicate, like unicorn weight hand blown wine glass that I can put in my dishwasher. That's
Once you know what you're doing, it's going to last for, I mean, still a consumable product. Like all glassware is going to break at some point.
sure.
But yeah, if you know how to take care of it, it won't break.
Well, I think they're really beautiful. I'm just also excited to see in terms of careers in wine. There's a lot of different things you can do.
Yes.
Right. Right?
I mean, there aren't that many people like me, probably. So I don't know if I'd call this a career path, but yeah, I think the key is just to do something that you're passionate about, obviously, but also that you know really well. I knew more about wine than anything, with the exception of like that one industry I was covering at a hedge fund. But that one industry, it's not like you can start a business in that industry. So this was like the closest thing to that, and so I just started two businesses in a field that I knew better than most other people.
But you were able to go into business around a product that you were personally passionate about. Which...
Exactly. So I didn't have to do any market research because I'm like, I would buy that, and I know like 50 other people that would also want to buy this. So
maybe the
yeah.
surprise for you that it was restaurants that really took off.
Yes, that was
before
not.
direct consumer.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's surprise is the right word. Like it's just like I didn't even think about it. But if I thought about it, like logically, like yeah, it would make sense that restaurants would.
So what are some of the restaurants around the world where people will find Glassfin today?
Definitely our strong spot is the US, and within the US are real strong places. New York City. We're just like everywhere in New York City. I would say we're probably in like half of the restaurants that we would want to be in.
Congratulations.
Like that. Yeah. But actually it's funny, we should bring up this book because this is the sommelier of Côte and Cocodac, and they're one of our newer awesome customers. So if you ever go to Côte or Cocodac and you see their logo on the side of the glass, that's our glass.
That's so cool. That's so cool. And but you're also in some restaurants around the world. So tell me about some of the cities where people will see Glassfin.
Yeah, I mean, our other big cities would be like Los Angeles. We have a lot of great clients there. Miami, San Francisco, Chicago. Like, I mean, all the big cities, we definitely have some major clients. Outside the U.S., especially in places where they don't speak English, I need to get help. So I'm not as close to those, but I know we're in a lot of great restaurants in Spain. We're in some restaurants in the UK. We're definitely in a lot in Canada. I do Canada myself, all over the place.
Well, congratulations.
Thank
and
you.
Thanks for making this happen.
Yeah.
It's something that I'm personally excited about. So cheers.
Cheers.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me on the pod.
Yeah. I'd love to hear about what wines you're excited about. Are there wines or regions that are
Yeah.
just your thing that you always
Yeah.
reach for, or maybe something new that you're interested in lately?
I'm a very experimental drinker. So when I started, I started in Toronto, and I was trying to just learn like how to blind taste wines. And that was like a part of my life. And then I started going to Paris more, and I started getting into natural wines. And so I had this big natural wine phase. And then a little bit later, I kind of came back to traditional wines, still loving natural wines, but just yeah. So I'm very experimental. I like the stuff that everyone else likes, like Burgundy and Champagne and North Rhone and Napa and like all those that everyone else likes. I'm not a big like Riesling fan, which is one place I think I diverge from traditional taste, and I'm not as big into like some Rieslings and some white Burgundy. I'm not as into as other people, and I think I'm really into some of these like up and coming. I guess not. We can't even call these up and coming anymore because like everyone knows about them. But like Grenache, I really love Grenache. Nebbiolo. Big fan of Nebbiolo, especially some of the newer kind of Nebbiolos. The Nebbiolos people are making in like a Burgundian style. I'm still, unfortunately, very, very Eurocentric with my wine consumption, which should probably be fixed.
Oh yeah, me too,
But yeah,
honestly. No, it's Italy. I gotta blame Italy. I just got
okay.
sucked in and obsessed.
I think with modern winemaking, you can basically make good wine almost anywhere as long as like the soil. I mean, they might figure out a way for that as well, but like as long as there's like limestone or whatever, you can make like very, very good wine basically anywhere in the world. So
Technology has
yeah,
really advanced,
yeah,
both viticulturally, so growing wine, and also
right,
with vinification.
right.
We've learned so much. The science is just boom, and the technology. Once you get into it, it's just like, for me, it was just like a river that I knew was going to sweep me away. But once it's swept you away, you're probably going to want a hand blown wine glass. So, fair warning. Luckily, you can get one
They're
at an
available for
accessible
sale.
price plan. So tell us about your website and how people can order your
Yeah,
glasses.
absolutely.
And what's the experience like? You mail it to people. What guide us through
Yeah,
purchasing your wine glasses,
it's
whether you're a
it's
person or a
pretty
restaurant.
simple. You just, well, yeah, if you're a restaurant, you just email me and then we'll go through the process. But if you're a consumer, then yes, go on our website, glass.vin, GLAS.VIN, and there's like shipping estimates on there, so most things can arrive within like a few days, so it's pretty efficient shipping. And yeah, you just put an order in, and then if anything goes wrong, you just reach out and we'll deal with it.
So I'm sorry, I've got to ask you this, but what about tariffs? So you're making your
Yes,
wine glasses in Asia. Are
yes.
are your are your prices about to double? What's going to happen to you?
So
How's that?
the thing about tariffs is no one knows what's happening with the tariffs. So therefore, I have no answers for you. We don't price based on our costs. We price based on the value that we deliver to our customers. We don't think of it as like, hey, if our costs go up 20%, then all through inflation, we haven't raised the price of this glass to our restaurant customers at all. Just still, it was started $20 a glass, still $20 a glass. That's the wholesale price, by the way, for when you buy a lot of glasses as a restaurant, and we
Wow.
haven't increased that even once. And obviously, there's been a lot of inflation in the last 5 years. I mean, obviously, if our costs go up and everyone else's costs go up and all other wine glasses go up in price, then we're going to have to increase our prices too. But it's too early to make any major decisions.
Well, I really hope that some of the worst case scenarios with the tariffs don't happen. I mean, I realize that even the discussions have done a lot of damage, certainly in
Yes.
all parts of the wine industry. But I really hope that everything works out for all of our sakes
Yeah, and,
to
and
be
and
able
no
to
one's worried about
still,
wine glasses. Like
yeah,
we're worried about like our iPhones costing 2x,
sure.
So we're just like a little apostrophe at the end of the sentence that, we might get taken around for a ride, but yeah, like the cost of your wine glasses are probably not going to be the main thing you're worried about.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I'm interested. What are your questions and feelings about wine glasses? Like, because
Yeah.
people have emotions about this. So write to me. You can write to me on Instagram. You can comment on this video. You can send me an email through motodeberry.com. I want to know how you feel about wine glasses. Are you really loving a stemless glass because you feel like it's like, hey, I just don't care? Are you like really intrigued by this and you're going to go buy this
We
today?
have stemless
What's,
glasses as
oh,
well,
you have
by
a
the way. So
stemless.
that's
Okay, talk
no
to me
good
about this.
excuse to not buy
All right, talk to me.
glassfin.
Okay, I can't believe I'm drinking at 11 in the morning. But
I
this is
love
actually,
it.
I should have made you blind this. Would you have got it?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you got to be really kind of in training for that. Even though I'm teaching it, I
yeah,
teach blind tasting
yeah.
to people at the sommelier school, but they're in training all the time. They're really sharp. I do meet with a blind tasting club. Maybe you can come sometime whenever you're
I'd love to.
coming through New York.
I think my percentage getting like Nebbiolo right is pretty high. My percentage getting Chianti Sangiovese right is very low.
Yeah.
And honestly, it's one of those wines that people generally don't bring to blind tastings.
Mm,
So you don't want to guess Chianti unless if like you're 99% sure it's
yeah.
Chianti, because it's much more likely that it's like Piedmont or something like that.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Yeah. No, I love a good Chianti Classico. The world is just so much more diverse,
Yeah.
biodiverse. Really, the wine from every single hillside can give you a different expression.
Yes.
If you want to really study and nerd out, then you start to make a map about it. But the map is not the hill.
Right.
It's like music. And I've got my piano here and I've got some sheet music on there. That piece of paper is not the music. You know, it's a
Yeah.
record, it's a tool, but the music is alive and it's
Yep.
living. And, you know, that's kind of the way it is with wine too. Like we can study and we can discuss things, and
Yes.
those things are really important for like the knowledge of the world. But at the end of the day, I mean, there's just
Yeah.
nothing you know,
Well, for me,
I love my research, right? It's a
yeah,
sensual research.
the similarity with music for me is one activity I enjoy doing aside from blind wine tasting is like blind music guessing. So
Ooh,
it's like Bella Bartok, you know, can I tell that it's Bella Bartok even though I've never heard of that song before because it's kind of like stylistically similar. So like Mozart is very stylistically similar, I find. Like all his songs kind of sound like da 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 da. Like it's
right.
basically kind of versions of that, and then Beethoven has its
You have a
similarities.
style,
Yeah, so
kind
that's
of a
what you're doing
signature.
with the wine, effectively,
Oh,
even
you're
though
giving
it's
me a dinner party idea. Okay, so we're both, what if we had uh okay,
blind wine and music
and
pairing.
classical, like, yeah. So somebody puts, right? What if
Yes,
we had a little dinner
yeah,
party and it was both blind
I like
tasting and
it.
classical music
Let's do
guessing?
it. I could cook for it.
Oh my God,
Yeah,
let's do
yeah.
this.
I do
Yeah.
press dinners at my apartment in Chelsea, so we could do
Oh.
this. Will be like a version of that. So,
All right, listen.
yeah.
If you're a classical wine fan who could, sorry, classical wine. If you're a classical music fan or a musician who could reasonably well guess blind get blind taste classical music
Yeah,
as well as wine, you know, even just kind of in a fun way,
yeah.
get in touch.
Yes,
Maybe you
please.
can come to this
Let's do
dinner that
it.
we're planning.
Yeah.
Déjase para sí mismo.
Look, if you're kind of interested in this stuff and you think it might be nice to try out a fancy wine glass, this is a sort of thanks to David, a lower investment way to be like, oh, do I need that? Do I need that in my life? I think I do, actually.
So there's a really great article. It's called Intelligent Life, but they've rebranded the magazine to 1843. It's part of The Economist, and they talk about blind tasting. And there's basically a yearly competition between Oxford and Cambridge, and so they do a big blind tasting feature on it. And you look at the team, and everyone is Asian. Okay, so I don't know if it's because Asians are good at blind tasting wine or if it's just like, I mean, obviously, like I think Asians really love wine and they see it this as this cool thing, whereas like in many ways, like in America, like wine is kind of like not as cool as like craft beer or like spirits or like cocktails
Yes,
and
but,
stuff
I mean
like
the
that.
statistics are bearing that out. Yeah.
Exactly. That article talks about these Asian people, and they're literally like using descriptors for these wines, and they're like, "No, no, it's not what you're saying because you've never had this dish before, but this is what it tastes like." And it's like a really fun,
Good for
different way to
them.
describe it. But it really reminds me of the idea of compression. So, like, even though all of these people might have different descriptors, at the end of the day, we come down to like what it is. So fundamentally, if you and I can agree that this is a Pinot Noir from Oregon or whatever, then it doesn't even matter what your descriptors are, what my
Right.
descriptors are. We're talking about the same thing. And if the wine isn't from Oregon and it's actually from Burgundy, that's okay as well, because there can be Burgundy wines that taste like Oregon wines and vice versa. Anyway, that's why I love blind wine
Yeah.
tasting.
You know, I think there's a thing about a certain kind of privilege too, which is who has to look something up.
Mm,
I think it's good for all of us to have to look things up.
right?
You know what I mean? Like if you're reading a tasting note and it's dish from Asia or a flavor that you haven't heard of and you have to Google it, well, enjoy it. You know,
Right.
enjoy that. It shouldn't always be the other way around. Honestly, it's so much less boring that way than it's like everything tastes like apples and pears and cherries. And, you know, this project is really about getting people to try new things and learn new languages and learn from new people and try new flavors. So, is there anything else that you want to add?
I think we covered everything. I think we had a very lengthy and pleasant conversation.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming on the show, David.
Yeah,
It's been
anytime. I'd love to come back sometime.
Oh my God. Yeah. I love our idea of doing a
Yeah.
classical music blind tasting combo. That sounds really fun. You don't have to drink wine out of a hand blown wine glass, but if you want to, you might not go back. I feel like my wine glass collection has been a bit of a mishmash. I certainly had some nice glasses, but I think they've mostly been machine made. I'm thrilled to have one of these in my house. I think it was something that I associated with. I go to the nice
Nice
restaurant and,
places
and
for
I'm
that.
seeing these
Yeah.
more and more. But I'm definitely enjoying. These definitely are going to have a little place in
Great.
my cabinet.
I love it.
So cheers, and I'm so glad I can put them in the dishwasher. So cheers again. Thanks to you.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, you're so welcome. And to all of our listeners, thank you. Wherever you go and whatever you like to drink, always remember to enjoy your life and to never stop learning. Support us on Patreon. Grab the newsletter at motodberry.com and subscribe to the YouTube channel at MotoDberry to watch the travel show, MotoDberry TV. Music for the show was composed by Ercilia Prosperi for the band Oh. Purchase their music at the link in the notes.